Good morning, everyone. Just going to wait for a couple of minutes, let people roll in for a second, and we'll get started. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get us started for today. We've got a more dense presentation than usual to get through, so I want to make sure we have enough time to cover everything. My name's Beth Warner. I'm a paralegal with Legal Aid Chicago. I work in the Public Benefits Practice Group. More specifically, I work with the Public Benefits Outreach and Enrollment Project. I'm someone with lived experience of homelessness and human trafficking in the city of Chicago. And this experience, it informs the work that I currently do with homeless folks, helping them access DHS benefits in the city. We're excited that you can join us for this third in our 12-part series on mainstream benefits. This training will be on the topic of maximizing cash income when clients with disabilities are unable to work. Thank yous to the SHPA, the Supportive Housing Providers Association, and the Illinois Office to Prevent and End Homelessness, providing funding for this training series. We appreciate that partnership and look forward to continuing these trainer sessions in the new year. Just a couple of housekeeping things before we start. We are recording these sessions and we are already recording. It's going to be about 50 minutes today for the presentation, and we're going to have about 10-15 minutes at the end for questions. We're still working on making these trainings accessible through the SHPA Training Center, so please watch out for an email that contains more information on that after this training. I'm going to send out a copy of the PowerPoint once we are done with the training today. There's a lot of information on it, so please don't worry yourselves about making sure you get every single note down. Make sure you're listening to what Gwen's saying also, so you can focus on that. The cameras are on for this training, but we do not have access to microphones just because these trainings have been a little bit larger. And all questions can be posted in the question and answers section on Teams. If you look on the top bar of your Teams screen, you can see it on the left-hand side there. It's a little speech bubble with a question mark in it. If you click there, you can drop any questions that you have throughout this session, but we will only be answering them at the end today. If there's anything lingering or you have questions after this training, please do feel free to reach out to Gwen or myself so that we can answer any questions that you might have. And then without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce my supervising attorney, Gwen Kaiser-Michon, who will be presenting on today's topic. Gwen Michon earned her undergraduate degree from Grinnell College and her law degree cum laude from Chicago-Kent College of Law. She has been fighting to increase access to public benefits for clients and communities she serves for over 12 years. Though originally from Chicago, she started her legal career at Southeast Louisiana Legal Services, where she represented individuals who are or recently were chronically homeless in New Orleans and Baton Rouge. In addition to helping her clients obtain the public benefits that they needed to survive, she advocated and still advocates for systemic solutions to end homelessness and hunger and to ensure that low-income people can access vital medical care. Since June 2020, she has served as a supervisory attorney in Legal Aid Chicago's Public Benefits Practice Group, where she manages the Public Benefits Outreach and Enrollment Project. She has also launched and now chairs the agency's Homeless Services Task Force. She has represented clients in administrative proceedings and in both state and federal courts. Last year, the project she supervises obtained benefits valued at over $4 million for her clients. Without further ado, Gwen, over to you.
Thanks, Beth. All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm gonna share. Sorry, this always takes me longer than I want it to. Okay, so there's opening slide. Is that coming through? Beth, you're the only one I can see. Okay. So first, a little bit about Legal Aid Chicago before we launch into everything else. Legal Aid Chicago is the largest private nonprofit legal aid in the state of Illinois. We provide comprehensive legal services having to do with a wide variety of legal issues that an individual might have. We primarily serve families living in Cook County, though some of our projects also reach into other parts of the state. And if you have any questions about any of that, please let me know. Okay, so the topic we have today is a little bit complicated to explain. So I'm trying to get that through here. So hopefully we can all get on the same page for what we're talking about. The goal is if you have clients, how can you as quickly as possible figure out, are they getting all the federal benefits they qualify based on their disability? And are they getting all the state cash benefits that they qualify based on their disability? And so this isn't talking about, there's a ton of other benefits programs out there for people who might not have disabilities or whose disabilities are not severe enough to receive these benefits. And we had some of those in the other trainings. So once we get the information on the site, and sorry that's been taking so long, but if you didn't participate in those, I recommend you go back, and then you can also contact me or Beth if you have any questions. But today we're going to talk about what are the federal and state benefits that are designed for people with severe disabilities? How can you tell if your client is getting all that they should be getting? How can you tell if there are other benefits that they might be getting, or that maybe they're getting benefits, but they're not getting all that they can? We're going to just dabble into how to apply for those and what else can they do to increase the cash benefits that they're getting. We're gonna, in talking about these topics, they're actually really big, and some of them are quite complex. And there are related topics that I know a lot of you might be interested in that we're not going to get into. So I wanted to articulate those here. We're going to send out a post-training survey, and I really hope that you'll fill it out. And we're going to ask you if you're interested in any of these for future trainings. So we're not going to talk about what to do if Social Security reduces or your benefits because they say that you've been overpaid. It's a huge topic. How does working impact eligibility? That's also a really big topic. I know that there was some talk about that at the SHPA training recently, but I do think that we'll probably do some more work on that next year. We will not talk in great detail about financial planning for people within individuals who do not meet the asset limit for SSI or ABD cash, or perhaps you have clients who are on SSI, and then they're going to have inheritance money or some other sort of asset come into their possession, and they're worried about their eligibility for these programs. We're not going to get into that today. And we're also not talking about the appeals process in great detail, other than saying when is a good time to file an appeal. So just keep those in your head, and then if you're interested in more training, let us know. Okay. All right. So we're going to start at federal benefits and explicitly Social Security. This is for most of the clients who you're working with, or for yourselves or your family members who are too disabled to work. Social Security is going to be the primary source of income that the person receives. That's for most folks. It's important to understand the Social Security first, because you want to maximize the amount of Social Security benefits someone is getting, because that's going to be usually for most people a larger amount of cash at stake and monthly benefits. So you want to be able to know what you're getting, make sure you're getting everything you're getting, maximize that, and then look to see what other state benefits you might also be eligible for. And sorry, I'm going to be switching from you to your client. It's just going to happen. I apologize for that. Okay. So first, under the Social Security Administration, to get any of the benefits that are for people who are disabled, when I say it like that, because it's the word disabled has a very specific meaning in Social Security. It means that you are unable to maintain substantial gainful employment for at least 12 months. So if someone has a disability, but they can work a little bit, Maybe they're working like 4 hours a week and just making a little bit of pocket change. They could still be disabled under Social Security rules. The income they make might impact their eligibility, but we'll get back to that in a second. But they'll still be disabled. Um, to qualify as being unable to maintain substantial gainful employment, you have to be able to show through medical records that you cannot do, you have medical conditions, physical or psychological, or a combination of those things that prevent you from maintaining any sort of job on a full-time basis. So it's not just that jobs you've had in the past, it's any job. You have to be able to show that it's expected to last at least 12 months. And then just having a diagnosis is not enough. The medical records need to show the diagnosis and also that the conditions result in symptoms that result in limitations that prevent the person from working. Um, I don't think I need to go through the rest of that per se. I try to put more information on the slides so you can use them as reference later. If someone meets that disability definition, then they might, if they meet the other requirements for the programs, qualify for Social Security disability, Supplemental Security Income or SSI, or other Social Security benefits that require the disability standard, specifically survivors. So for those of you who have been to these trainings before, this chart might kind of look familiar. I'm trying to rework it for everyone so that you can keep seeing how these different issues interplay with each other. But there are 4 main benefits that are provided by the Social Security Administration. Start with the top, SSI, and sorry, the spacing looks like that. So SSI is a social safety net program. It's going to be for people who have very, very low income. They're required to maximize their income from these other sources. They have to meet that disability standard that I just discussed. The maximum income for 2023, it's about to go up for 2024 a little bit, but for 2023, the maximum that someone can get is 914. The average for 2023 that people are getting is only 657. That could be because there are valid reasons why it's less. It also could be that people don't understand that they could be qualifying for more if they rearranged things in ways that I'm going to discuss in a minute. So the SSI can be reduced from the 914 if someone has other income or if others are paying for their shelter or food. That is one that we see quite frequently. Or it can be reduced if there's an overpayment. It cannot be garnished for child support. It cannot be garnished for federal taxes, which, as you'll see, the other Social Security benefits can. Importantly, SSI is paid on the first of the month. I say that because one of the things that we see when we have clients come into our office is they often don't know what they're getting. And so one of the first questions we'll say is, when do you get your check? And if they say, I get it on the first of the month, then we know that it is SSI. The 3 categories below that are disability, retirement, and survivor's benefits. You can only get one of those. You'll get whatever is the one that the maximum, the higher level one that you qualify for. In terms of thinking of people with disabilities, disability is for someone who meets that disability standard. They're unable to maintain substantial gainful employment. They have enough work credits with Social Security and they're under 65. That's how you get on disability. That's who qualifies for disability. The maximum is about $3,600 in 2023. Retirement is for anyone. You can qualify for it when you turn 62. Most people wait until they're about 65. And if you're on disability before you turn 65, when you turn 65, it automatically converts to retirement. If you're over 65 and you're disabled, then you just apply for retirement. You don't need to go through the disability determinations process. That's helpful to know. If you have a client who's over 65 and you're perhaps a SOAR person, the person who's over 65 doesn't have to go through that disability determination process. So the process is going to be shorter, and it's going to be a lot less intensive than when you have to go and prove disability. If you have a client who is a survivor, so if you had someone who was, let's say, just example, they were married and the spouse was the primary worker and that person is deceased, or perhaps they were a minor living with they had a parent and the child has disabilities, the surviving spouse or the surviving child might qualify for survivor's benefits. These are a little bit more complicated, but I just wanted to make sure you know about them. we don't see them as frequently, at least in our office, but there is a way to get Social Security, disability, or retirement type benefits, even if you weren't the one who earned the work credits because it was a spouse or your parent. Okay, so you can get one of those. These benefits are have much more reasons why they could be less than the maximum that you could potentially qualify for. The benefits can be reduced because of retirement can be reduced if you retire early. You'll get less than if you wait until you're 65 or 70. They can be garnished for federal debts. They can be garnished for family support related debts, so like child support or alimony. They can also, I won't get into the family maximum. They can also be reduced. Um, the main one we see is for overpayments. So if Social Security says that, oh, we overpaid you before, you have to pay all that money back, they can actually bring your disability benefits all the way down to zero. And so that can be a huge problem for folks who are trying to survive and that's their only income source. We also see a lot of cases in our office where there's a miscalculation of benefits. I'm just throwing that out there. You might have someone who comes in and says, I have all this work history. I don't understand why my disability benefits are so low. In those situations, you probably want to go talk to an attorney, or advise them to go talk to an attorney to pull the tax records and the work record from Social Security, and they can review it. We have attorneys in our office who do that regularly. So for these three types of Social Security, those benefits are paid on some day other than the first of the month. Not the first. Okay. That was a quick and dirty. Hopefully that made sense. All right. So for these trainings, I have some sample clients to help you kind of put a face and some story onto how this all plays out. So let's pretend you're sitting in your office one day and Julia walks in and Julia says, I'm 61 years old and I'm getting $436 a month in SSI and I can't make ends meet. What can I do? All right. So these are generally pretty quick strategies and questions you can ask. So like I already mentioned, you can ask, what day of the month do you get paid? If it's on the first, it's SSI. If it's not on the first, it's not SSI. Some people get two checks. You can get, if you're getting a low amount of Social Security, disability, or retirement, you could also qualify for SSI. And so some people will say, I get paid on the first and the third. We're like, well, that means that you're getting a little SSI, you're getting a little something else. We don't know what. You can ask someone if they have Medicare. If they're under 65 years old and have Medicare, then that means that they're not on SSI because SSI doesn't come along with Medicare the way that some of the other disability programs do. You can also look at how much they're getting paid. And this is where I tell my staff to look at is a little bit more complicated. But if they tell you how much they're getting, if they're getting the SSI maximum, which in 2023 is $914, then that's probably SSI. If they're getting $20 more than that, they're probably getting SSI plus something else. We don't know what. And if they're getting more than that, then they're not getting SSI. They're getting one of the other programs. If they're getting less to the SSI maximum, like poor Julia here, then that's not going to work. We're not going to be able to tell just by the amount she's getting what benefit she's getting. So just if you can just keep that maximum or maximum plus 20 in your head, that can kind of help you figure it out. The last thing you can do is look at the letters. So Social Security sends award letters to the clients and they can be really confusing. I'm hoping you can read this. I tried to put in so you could see how it looks on the letter. But as you can see here on the left-hand side, this letter from Social Security says on the top, retirement, survivors, and disability. It also later says the day you became disabled. So for this one, we can tell that she's getting Social Security disability because this is retirement, survivors, or disability, and they're disabled. So they have disability. The one on the right here, it says supplemental security income on the top. So my point is you need to kind of look at these headers because sometimes the rest of the information may not be so clear. These letters that I pulled from the internet are a little bit better than some of the ones we see. I just wanted to point out that a lot of times when I ask my clients to give me Social Security letters so we can figure out what's going on, they'll just give me that front page that looks like this. And at least for our purposes, when I'm looking at cases, it's not particularly helpful. It's actually this last page of the notice that is really useful because it'll show what their total benefit is before any deductions, and it'll show what deductions are being taken out. So in this case, the gross income is over the SSI limit, 1,700 is more than 914. And then it shows that there's a Medicare premium being taken out to pay for their Medicare insurance. This is a really old letter. It's like 2017. It's more than that now. And then it gives the gross amount on the or the net amount. That's how much that person actually gets paid. This is just another way that they'll show the calculation sometimes. This is for an SSI letter. So again, this is usually on the last page or next to last page of the Social Security award letter, and it'll show what the gross Social Security is as well as the net. Okay, so back to Julia. So she's 61, she's under retirement age, and she's getting 436 a month. She says it's SSI. And so that's less than the SSI maximum, right? So we look at her, what she's getting, it's less than the SSI maximum of 914. So maybe that's SSI that's been reduced by something, maybe it's something else, we don't know. So we say, well, when do you get paid? And she said, I get paid on the 3rd of the month. So now we know, okay, that's not SSI, you're getting something else. It's not retirement, she's not old enough yet. So it's either disability or survivor's benefits. And then we ask if she has Medicare, and she does. So if you're under 61 and you're on survivors, you don't get Medicare. So we can just tell by these facts that she's actually getting Social Security disability benefits of $436 a month. This is a very common situation that we see, like very, very common. A client will come in and think they're on SSI, but they're actually not. And that's important because I'll get to that in a second. Sorry, I forgot that I had this other one. She's not getting garnished. Okay. So it's important because we want to see if there's other benefits she can qualify for. Why did I have this here? I'm going to come back to that. Oh, so these are the reasons why benefits might be reduced. So we're going to explore those reasons, and then we'll come back to Julia. So for SSI, if she was on SSI, both earned and unearned income can reduce monthly benefits. SSI is the one that's most at risk of having monthly benefits reduced because of other income. The other programs are not affected at all by unearned income. So let's say, so we determine she's getting disability. If she said, well, I'm going to be inheriting a whole bunch of money and I'm going to get it next month, I'm worried that I'm going to lose my Social Security benefits. We're going to say, well, that's unearned. You didn't work for that inheritance money. That's not going to be treated as income. But if she wanted to go out and get a job, that would count as earned income, but it doesn't reduce her monthly benefits. It's just that if she worked enough that Social Security said, oh, that's enough, it makes it clear to us that you can work enough that you're not disabled anymore. They might consider her not disabled. For retirement and survivors, earned income also has no impact. And the earned income is a little bit confusing until you get to retirement age. If you're over retirement age, it doesn't matter if you have earned income. You're allowed to work as much as you want. Okay. So if these are the problems, right? So the problems that can reduce benefits are overpayments. Those are the most common. Usually we're seeing overpayments, or we're seeing someone come in and they're like Julia, their non-SSI income is less than the SSI max plus $20. We'll see people come in whose benefits are being reduced because someone else is paying for food and shelter, or because SSI has miscalculated, mischaracterized. So what do we do? If there's an overpayment, and again, this would be like a whole nother session. If you guys are interested in it, we can make it happen. But for overpayments, there's 3 options. You can appeal the overpayment, which means you're telling Social Security, no, you're wrong. You didn't overpay me. That was a mistake. I don't owe you any money. You can request a waiver, which basically says, yes, you did overpay me. Maybe you overpaid me, but I shouldn't have to pay you back anyway because I can't afford it. Or you can set up a repayment plan. And Social Security does have some pretty generous repayment plans. The process is a little difficult to navigate. If someone is getting the maximum of Social Security disability, for example, that they qualify for, but that amount is less than SSI maximum plus 20, which is currently 934, then we can just have them apply for SSI. And again, they're not going to have to go through the disability determination process on these cases. They've already been found disabled by the Social Security Administration in their Social Security disability case. So they just need to apply and be found financially eligible. It should be a lot faster than the usual Social Security process. Um, if someone is ineligible because of SSI, because of assets, you can consider financial planning to reduce the countable assets. Again, that's a really big topic. But if you have any clients in particular, happy to talk to you about their situations. And if there's people want more training, we can do that. Just a little note. Part of why we see this so frequently is because people think they can apply for Social Security disability online. So they fill out the online application, they click on there that they're interested in applying for SSI, and they think they're done. And that is not actually an SSI application. And so a lot of folks get really confused in the process. And so I would really implore you to keep a lookout for this one where all someone needs to do is apply for SSI, and that's going to bump up their monthly benefits. Um, if someone's Social Security is being reduced because someone else is paying for food and shelter, we often advise people to just consider changing the way the finances are done within their family. They can ask if they start paying rent, if they write a contract and say, I'm going to pay you rent every month, if they're living in someone else's house, that can get rid of that reduction by Social Security. And it can be a really pretty easy fix. And then for miscalculations and mixed characterizations, again, I would recommend that you talk to somebody with some expertise in Social Security rules. That can be pretty complicated and would involve probably going through an appeals process. Okay, so back to Julia. So you've determined that her $436 a month is not SSI that she thought she was getting. Um, and you also determined, sorry, I skipped this earlier. You determined that she's having Medicare premiums reduced. And so the 436 is not really her income. She's actually getting $600 a month in Social Security, disability benefits. And then Social Security is taking out $165 a month to pay for her Medicare. So you advise her to apply for SSI. You say you're getting less than the SSI max. So let's apply for SSI. And then if you do that, she should pretty quickly be approved, and that will increase her net income to $796 a month. So that was pretty easy. So now she's getting $934 a month gross and $796 a month in net. So I have a few more examples just so you can see how this plays out. So this is Barb. Barb tells you that they're getting $1,200 a month in SSI. That's clearly not SSI. It's over the SSI max plus 934. They're getting disability. So usually on the on the Social Security benefits front, there's probably not a whole lot you can do. You can tell them to look at the calculations and see if there's any deductions and to make sure that they're getting all the benefits that they can based on their work history. Here's James. James is 80 and living with his daughter, and he tells you that he's getting $633 a month in SSI. Again, we're under the SSI maximum, right? We don't know what that is, regardless of if he says it's social SSI or disability. So it's reduced, it's something. We ask him when he's paid and he says it's the first of the month. We know that's SSI then. So we look at the award letter, and what's happening in this situation is because he's living with his daughter and she's not charging him any rent, they're taking out 1/3 approximately of his check and recognition of the fact that he doesn't have any costs for shelter or food. So we could tell him, and sometimes we'll have like really hard discussions with some of our clients about this, is that we could have his daughter start charging him rent. It has to be real. It can't be like, you can't lie to the Social Security Administration. That's a big bad no. But if she does start charging him some amount of rent, Social Security would no longer reduce the amount of SSI that he's getting for that shelter um, deduction. And so, but the rent paid will also count as her income. And so sometimes families decide that it's not worth doing it because they, for whatever reason, they don't want the daughter, they don't want the landlord, I don't person, the family member to be counted as having this income because they might be liable for taxes. And if they're getting any public benefits, it might put their public benefits at risk. But I think it's worth having a conversation with them. Okay, George. So George says he's getting $500 a month in SSI, less than 914. So we still don't know what this is. He says he's paid on the 3rd of the month. So that is not SSI. It's got to be something else. Based on his age, because he's so young, it's probably disability. Oh, we ask him if he has Medicare. No. And then we look at his Social Security award letter and we see that there's a deduction for child support. So it turns out that he has Social Security disability because SSI cannot be reduced by child support, but Social Security disability can. And he can't apply for SSI to make up the difference because his net income is actually $1,200 a month. But 700 of that is being deducted for child support. He'll be found over income for SSI. Because the eligibility for SSI is based on your gross income. So unfortunately for George, unless there's something we can do about the underlying child support obligation, there's really nothing to do to increase his federal benefits. In those situations, we might consider having him talk to a family law attorney. I know not all of you are in Chicago, but there are legal aids all over the state who can help talk to someone about their rights under the family under the family law rules. All right, Aaron and Chrissy. So Aaron and Chrissy are my clients who just got married. They're both 55. They just got married. They're super excited. Before they got married, Aaron was getting $914 a month in Social Security benefits, and Chrissy was getting $1,100. But then after they got married, Aaron's benefits were reduced to $257. And so they want to know what happened. So before they got married, we can tell Aaron was already getting the SSI max, so he was probably getting SSI. Chrissy was getting probably Social Security disability based on her age. So what happened? Again, the SSI rules are very, very sensitive to having anyone else providing income or like even housing to people who are receiving the program. And under the SSI rules, once you get married, your spouse is considered responsible for helping to take care of you. And so that's what happened here is that Social Security started counting some of Chrissy's income against Aaron, which reduced his SSI benefit. So unfortunately, there's probably not much we can do for them on the Social Security side. Okay, can I actually pause here, Beth, for like 2 seconds? Were there any questions that came in? Because I feel like I flew through that. And I know that that was a lot of dense information.
Yeah, there were a couple of questions. One question was about whether adopted children can qualify for their biological parents' work history if they're deceased. I know, spicy one. That was a good question.
That's a really good question. I don't know that off the top of my head, but I can look that up and get that out to everybody later if Beth can remind me.
I totally can, no problem. And the next question is, what about disabled vets? Can they get VA benefits and SSI?
I was just getting there.
So, see, this is what happens when you take a break mid-training.
So there are other federal benefits that I didn't cover today. So there's veterans, there's 2 main cash benefits for veterans. And again, these are huge topics that I'm not covering today, but there's service connection. Service connection compensation is, I always think of it like a workers' comp program for people who are in the military. So it's a cashly month benefit to pay for certain veterans to compensate for injuries that were created or exacerbated during service. There's also a VA pension. VA pension is sort of in line with SSI in terms of you have to be over 65 or have a really severe disability. They define disability a little bit differently, but it's roughly the same. And that's also a monthly cash benefit for veterans with low incomes and who have a few assets and who are totally disabled. So those are the 2 veterans benefits that someone might be qualified for if they have any military service. And yes, you can technically get Social Security benefits, any of them, and VA benefits at the same time. Um, the sweet spot is if you qualify for like a high level of service connection, with aid and attendance, for those of you who know what that is, and Social Security disability, you could get all of those at the same time. Technically, if you have enough work credits, like post service, to qualify for Social Security disability, and there will be no impact on each other. I used to have this like hierarchy of benefits chart that I could, and I can try to dig that up and get that out to you guys. But so service connection doesn't impact Social Security disability, and because it's an unearned benefit, unearned income. Pension, same, it doesn't impact Social Security disability. If you're on VA pension is similar to SSI in that they're both more sensitive to if you have other income sources. So you could, I guess, get VA pension and Social Security disability, but your pension's going to be reduced by your disability amount. And I believe it's a dollar for dollar. I'd have to look that up again. The SSI can be more complicated because the unearned income still counts as income. So if you're getting a VA pension, you're probably going to be over income for SSI. There are a lot more situations when someone can qualify for service connection because the range of money you can receive through the service connected program is such a huge range. So if someone's at like 10, 20%, I don't remember what the numbers are right now, but if they're at a low percentage of service connection and that's all they're getting for income, they also might be eligible for SSI. But again, that's going to count as income, unearned income in the SSI program. Okay, anything else?
There are another couple of questions, but they're ones that would be good, I think, at the end.
The end. Okay, cool. I'm just put railroad workers on here just so you know that people who worked for the railroad system, like Amtrak, the program is almost identical to Social Security disability and SSI, but it's a smidge different. So people who work for the railroad don't pay into the Social Security system, so they don't qualify for that, but they could qualify for disability benefits under railroad benefits. And you can qualify for those if you're totally disabled, same as the Social Security definition, if you're over 65, or if you're occupationally disabled, which I'm letting you know about, but I'm just to be transparent, I've never done any of those before. I've only had a few railroad workers ever, but I just want to let you know. Before someone can get on SSI, they have to maximize all the benefits they qualify for. So I used to run a vets program in Louisiana. And so we were regularly helping people apply for SSI. And then we would have to help them apply for the VA benefits, even though we knew that they weren't eligible, which is unfortunately just like another step that veterans will often have to take to get into the SSI program, just to show that they were denied from the veterans benefits. Okay, that's federal. So we're going to pretend that all of our clients, we've maximized all their federal benefits, and now we're going to try to figure out what we can get from the state. The state has 3 cash programs. TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, that's primarily for people who have minor children under 18 and are living with a family member of some sort. On the other side of the equation, we have VTTC cash. Those are for victims of trafficking, torture, and other serious crimes, people who are preparing for or have applied for U visa, T visa asylum. Some people who are on Social Security benefits, well, their family members might qualify for some of these programs, like if we're looking at maximizing income for a family. So I just want to remind you that those exist. But we're going to talk about the guy in the middle today, which is cash assistance for elderly and people with disabilities. It's called AABD cash. So the benefits for AABD cash are paid on a link card, but they can be paid through direct deposit. And I really highly recommend that if you have any clients who are getting any cash benefits from the Department of Human Services, that you advise them to get their benefits transferred to a bank account rather than leaving them in the link card account. Those link cards are not very secure. And there's currently no mechanism in the state to reimburse people benefits if their benefits are skimmed. And the problem is it's really bad right now. So they can either have their benefits deposited directly into a bank account, or if they know when they're going to get paid and they just want to draw it all out that day and go deposit it into a bank account, that's another option. Okay, so who might be qualified? There's a lot on this text. I wanted you to have all the information. We're gonna so there's this 2 parts on the side here. So there's, I need like a pointer. Okay, so an applicant has to meet definition of Social Security's disability or blind or age. So over 65, has a disability that prevents them from maintaining substantial gainful employment, or is blind under Social Security rules, right? That's the first qualification. They fit one of those. They also have to fit into one of these categories in this box. I'm not going to talk about the 2 on the right. Those are for non-citizens. We hardly ever see them. They're not the VTTC group. It's other people. If you have folks that fit into those categories, we can talk about those later, but they're not very common. The overwhelming majority of people who qualify for AABD cash fit into these other 2. They're either receiving SSI or they're over income for SSI. So they're either currently receiving 914 or less in SSI, or they're getting Social Security disability, retirement, survivors. And Social Security is treating them as over income for SSI. And I feel like, sorry, I pulled this from another training and I feel like I covered some of these other things already. In addition to all that, there is a really strict asset limit for ABD cash. For one person, it's $2,000, and for 2 people, it's $3,000. This is the same asset limit as for SSI. So if someone is on SSI, they should meet this limit. And you shouldn't have to worry about it. There can be a rare occasion where you run into a client who's on SSI and they're over these asset limits. If that happens, then you should advise them to address that right away, or talk to somebody to address that right away, because if Social Security finds out that they've been over asset, they're going to get charged an overpayment. And that can be pretty awful. And then again, applicants have to, just like the SSI program, applicants have to maximize all the income they have from other sources before they can qualify for AABD cash. But AABD cash does not count as income for SSI. So that's how this is going to work. And that hierarchy of benefits, SSI income impacts AABD cash eligibility, but not vice versa. Okay. So if someone fits into a category of people that qualifies for AABD cash, DHS has to do a budget. The budget figure is, for those of you who know SNAP, there's like a budget to figure out if you're eligible, and then there's a budget to figure out your monthly benefits. AABD cash does it all at once. You do the budget to determine what their benefits would be, and if it's over $1, then they're eligible. So to figure out if someone's financially eligible, this is I'm trying to simplify this as much as possible, just so you know, it's a very complicated process that they use. I don't know why they decided this, but they did. So you take what's called an AABD cash standard, which is a bunch of allowances. I'm going to tell you in a second. You subtract out countable income, and then that's the monthly assistance payment. The cash standard uses what kind of expenses the person has to determine how much money the state thinks they need to survive. The point of this program is to help people pay for their basic needs. So basic needs are things like food, clothing, shelter, utilities, basic living supplies. The amounts for these provisions are laid out in state regulation, and a lot of them have not been updated since the 1980s. And you'll see what the amounts are in a second, and you can have your own opinions about those things. So we figure out what allowances someone qualifies for, like what of these things are they paying for, and to some extent, how much are they paying? It's more important what they're paying for than how much they're paying. We take that amount and we subtract out countable income. And I included this amount here so you could see that it's pretty complicated, not so that you can figure this out for your clients. But some of the considerations that are made are things like how much earned income they have. Earned income is treated much more favorably in this program than unearned income. So how much unearned income they have, how much earned income they have. If they're living with a spouse who has earning more money than they are, that spouse's money can be considered available to them to some extent. On the flip side, if they're living with someone who they're taken care of, so either a spouse or a child, then some of their non-SSI income can be attributed to that person, which is actually going to lower their countable income. And then some forms of income are exempt. So we'll get to some illustrations of that in a second. There is some, so like I said, there's all these different allowances, right? The ones that have the biggest impact and that can really help increase the amount of AABD cash someone qualifies for are the three listed here. One is restaurant meals. That's the one that we rely on primarily for people who are street homeless. It's a special food allowance for people who don't have facilities for preparing food, or for those who are unable to prepare food on their own and don't have anyone to help them. But it's really that first one that we're focused on in most of our work is if someone is street homeless, they don't have any facilities to prepare food, and so they should be eligible for a larger food allowance. This middle one, like to a lesser extent, can help out if someone has a special diet that's prescribed. They have to have a note from a doctor showing that they're prescribed a diet. They get a little bit of bump in their food allowance. And then we've been doing a ton of work around this one on the right. Okay, so I'm actually going to skip around a little bit. This is a copy of a notice of decision. If you look down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, on the 8th row down, it says rent. I don't know if you guys can see my pointer. Here it says rent. This $97 is the maximum that the state allows for rent in this program, and under the regular rules. So, to follow the logic of the law, the AABD cash program was made to ensure that people with disabilities can meet their basic needs. And the maximum that the program will provide for them for rent is $97 a month. I mean, it's just not enough for anyone to pay for rent. What happens is the excess shelter allowance allows us to increase the amount of money that someone gets for rent under these calculations to actually be the rent amount that they pay every month. But the only people who qualify for that are people who have medical conditions that prevent them from navigating stairs, and they have to prove it. They need to have a doctor's note that says this person has a medical condition that prevents them from navigating stairs, and this is what it is, and this is why. The average amount that someone gets under the AABD cash program is approximately $97 a month. I'll start here. See here. It's like in the $70 to $90 a month range is the average amount that people get in the AABD cash program. If you have clients who have conditions that prevent them from navigating stairs, the amount they can get can be much higher. We're regularly getting clients $800, $900 a month in AABD cash, just using this excess shelter allowance. The problem is that DHS is not regularly evaluating eligibility for this area. So if you decide that you're going to work on this for one of your clients and you need some help, let me know. If you're in Chicago, you can refer clients to our team, to Beth. And if you're outside of or if you're in Cook County, we can get you to somebody else. Our Beth's funding is for the city of Chicago. But we have some other staff who serve the rest of Cook County. And if you're outside of Cook County, I can try to help connect you with some attorneys at the legal aids from other places in the state. So, but it can make a big impact, which you'll see a little bit in a minute. So this is what the notice of decision looks like for AABD cash. It is super confusing. And as you'll see at the bottom there, that income this bottom section is supposed to give you information on what income they counted and how they calculated it. It actually doesn't make any sense, and it's never filled out. Like I maybe like once have ever seen that filled out correctly. So there's something wrong with the computer programming that doesn't get filled out properly. Despite the fact that this is really hard to read, there are a few things that you can do to make sure your clients, if they get AABD cash and you get a chance to look at their notice, that you can actually look at it to see if it looks like it's correct. So one, just check these allowances and make sure that they're all there. If they're getting excess shelter, that's going to be a separate line item. So that's like an easy, like, oh, it's not there, so they didn't get it. Restaurant meals is sometimes put in with food and sometimes it's its own item. I don't know. But But if you can just check through to make sure that the allowances are there and make sure that the months are right, that's really going to get you like most of the way to making sure if the notice is correct. And then I put some other little tips in here if you want to use them, but those are the big ones. I wanted to highlight, as you see in these allowances and my emphasis on the excess shelter, the largest variable in how much someone gets in ABD cash is how much they pay in rent. So unfortunately, for most folks who are street homeless, they're unlikely to qualify for very much ABD cash, unless they're getting pretty low amounts in SSI. So just wanted to set that reality base for you. It can happen, but it's rare, unfortunately. Okay, so we're gonna come back to our folks. So here's James again. You got James. He got him to increase his SSI. He agreed to start paying rent, and so now his SSI benefits are back up to 914. If you suggest he applies for AABD cash, and he says, I applied before and I didn't get it. This happens to us all the time. This happens all the time. We have folks come in and are like, I applied before, I don't qualify. But eligibility for AABD cash is not a constant. People can become eligible and ineligible and then become eligible again. And so we say, hey, let's give it a shot, right? The benefit that happened when he decided to start paying rent to his daughter for living is not only did his SSI increase, right? But now DHS, when they're doing this evaluation, they're going to say, oh, he pays rent and he's not in what's called a shared household. There's this concept in AABD cash where if you live with other people, they think that it costs you significantly less to live. And so your allowances plummet. But they say, well, you're living, now you have your own expenses, you're paying rent, you're paying $300 a month in rent, and he's got $40 in phone. And so if he applies again, he would likely get approved for about $92 a month in AABD cash. So with all of the work that you've done, telling him to apply for, to change the living arrangement so that he's paying rent, and then applying for AABD cash, you've increased his income by $373 a month. Going to George. So George, we got stuck with on the Social Security, right? Like there was nothing we could do. We figured out he's actually getting $1,200 a month in Social Security benefits, even though he's only seeing $500 of that because the rest is going to court-ordered child support. If George were to apply for AABD cash, he would get $505 a month. Because that amount that he's paying for child support, it counts for Social Security, right? Like that's income for Social Security. He's not gonna be eligible for SSI, but it is not counted for AABD cash. And so AABD cash is gonna treat him like he's only making $500 a month. And so he can make up some of that difference in the child support. Now he's still gonna only make 1,005. But that's a big difference from the 500. That's doubling his income. Barb here. So Barb was getting $1,200 a month in Social Security disability as well. There wasn't much we could do for Barb looking at their Social Security benefits. But you learned that Barb is paying $800 a month for rent and is using a wheelchair to get around. So Barb, you can't navigate stairs. If Barb were to apply for AABD cash, they would qualify for $440 a month, bringing their total income to $1,640 a month. So that excess shelter in this situation really brings it up. If Barb did not use a wheelchair and was able to navigate stairs, they would not be eligible for ABD cash at all. So this is poor Aaron and Chrissy who got married and lost their Social Security benefits. I've had clients where this happened too. So it's like so frustrating. So I'm just going to show you the amount. So Chrissy would be ineligible for ABD cash. If you have a situation where two people have disabilities and one of them might qualify for AABD cash, it's a best practice. It makes it easier for DHS to get it right. If you apply for AABD cash for both of them, even though you only know one is eligible, that's because the way that they're going to treat the money is going to be different if they know they're both disabled. And so you're basically just like letting them know ahead of time, look, like, don't forget, they both have disabilities. So in this situation, because Aaron's benefits are being reduced so significantly, he would be eligible for about $420 a month in AABD cash. Oh, and we have a new friend here, Felix. So Felix is, um, so you meet Felix. This is like an outreach scenario, right? You meet Felix. He's living street homeless. He's staying in an emergency shelter, and like, let's say you're connecting with him to try to get him to start doing intake to get into permanent supportive housing. And he's like, I can't make it work on this money. I don't know how I'm gonna make it work. So unfortunately, the way that AABD cash works, he's not going to be eligible for AABD cash at all. The sum of the allowances, if he's using a free government phone, he's not going to get the phone allowance. He's not paying anything for rent. He's not paying anything for utilities. He won't qualify for AABD cash. But then you find him housing because you're amazing. And you tell him, well, a third of your income is going to go to the rent. And he's like, well, how am I going to afford that? Well, part of how you can help afford that is by applying for AABD cash. So now that he has a rental obligation, he's going to qualify for more of those allowances. And so he would qualify for, I mean, it's not a ton of money, $35 a month in AABD cash. But when you have this little income, that can make a really big difference in someone's life. And then if he had a condition that prevented him from using stairs, he would get $235 a month, which would be a much nicer amount of money to get. But all right, and then back to Julia here. So Julia, we helped Julia maximize her Social Security benefits, right? So now she's getting Social Security, disability, and SSI, but she still has that deduction. Oh, sorry, I got ahead of myself. So she's only getting $796 a month because she's having her income reduced for Medicare premiums. So here's some information about her, and you help her apply for AABD cash, and you find out she's ineligible because the amount for her rent is going to max out in those allowances at $97 plus utilities. And so her income, even at $934 a month for Julia, is going to be too high in the AABD cash program. This program's weird. So you show the notice to your friendly neighborhood legal aid attorney, and they say, yeah, sorry, there's nothing we can do. But there is something you can do. There's my yes. You can help Julia apply for the Medicare Savings Program. So the Medicare Savings Program is a program through the state of Illinois where the state of Illinois will help low-income people pay Medicare premiums. So, and I talked about this briefly in a different training, and sense of time, I'm gonna just skip ahead to how this works out. So, if you apply for the Medicare Savings Program, that should be approved within 45 days. And she sees an increase in her monthly Social Security benefits of $164 because that Medicare premium is no longer getting taken out of her Social Security check. So now her total Social Security income that she sees in her pocket is $934 a month, which is nearly double what she had when she first came into your office. And then I just did another plug for Excess Shelter at the bottom. So to apply for AABD cash or the Medicare Savings Program, you can do all those through the ABE website, just like you do for SNAP and TANF. You're just going to click on, it's a little bit confusing. So Medicare Savings Program is pretty clear. The cash program, the way the computer works, you're going to click on cash as if you're applying for TANF. And it's going to ask you some like questions that sort of don't make sense for AABD cash because they're for TANF. And that's like, it's going to give you warnings, right, Beth? It's like, warnings about like work requirements or something that does not apply to AABD cash. But you have to get through those to get to the questions that you need to answer to apply for AABD cash. Other ways to apply are by going into the local FCRC. You cannot apply for this by phone effectively. It does require an interview to get AABD cash, just so you know. Okay. Questions? Oh,
Not such a great job of finishing on time today. It is 11:59. For those of you who are able to stick around for a minute and would like to post some questions in the Q&A, please feel free to do so, and we'll hang around for a minute to make sure that we get some answers to you. Shout out to everyone that just sat through this training. That was that was a tough one, right? And we're not expecting people to come out as experts, right, from this training. The idea is that this AABD cash in particular is a super underutilized benefit in Illinois, and we really want to get this conversation going about this benefit and making it more common that we're dealing with it in an everyday kind of environment, if that makes sense. Let's see, we've got a couple of questions in the chat. One of them was a question about, Gwen, Social Security benefits for immigrants, specifically with a focus on green card holders. This question was for.
That is a very, very complicated question.
Yes, that's why I was saving it to the end.
Let's tag that. No, but I think we might need to tag that for some other time.
Okay.
Because there's a whole bunch of factors that are considered when determining whether an immigrant is eligible. And I've worked on cases, but I've never presented on it. So when I work on a case, I learn what I need to get the case through, right? I don't know. I won't be able to give a complete answer right now.
Okay, so the answer to that question is a non-answer, but we will get back to you with a much more substantial answer. It looks like that is the most we've answered our questions for today. That looks like there's a new post. Hold on.
There's also, hold on, while you're doing that, there was someone sent in a question about college student income. And so I thought I should just answer that here. So the question was, if I have if someone is a college student who's on SSI, can they, and they're not sure if they can work, is it okay for them to do work study or internships? And so just the answer to that, so you know, is, and I don't know if the person who submitted the question is here because they're sent anonymously, but financial aid is excluded from income and resources for Social Security purposes, including for SSI. And so work study would be fine. The income from the internship would likely count as earned income under the SSI and the Social Security disability rules, as well as under the state cash rules. There is a concern as well that I want to make sure you know, that if Social Security sees that someone is working or doing an internship, like if they were to find out, it might alert them to dig into whether the person still has a disability that qualifies for the Social Security program. So just that. And then a whole bunch of people asked for other sorts of resources. And I said, I put a slide in here, so if we had time, but we don't. So I'll send this to SHPA and let them know, but they were outside of my area of knowledge, like asking for utility assistance and help with housing and that stuff. So.
Okay, we got another good question here. If two people both get early retirement benefits and then get married, but both are under 65, would you expect either of their retirement benefits to be affected by their marriage?
Oh, retirement benefits won't be affected by marriage. Right. It's just the SSI.
Okay. This question is, I have a client with no income. He's 60 years old and have gone through rapid rehousing, I'm guessing, RRH. How do I assist him?
With?
Just how do I assist him? So I would imagine that would start with, if they're housed, looking at income like Social Security and figuring out how to get someone stabilized. And
if they're 60 and stable, I would apply for SSI and disability. I always try to apply for both because we don't know what somebody's going to get. And my experience as clients, especially if they've been, my experience is primarily working with people who are chronically homeless, just so you guys know. And so my clients would have a hard time kind of reconstructing the past. And so I was never sure if they were able to tell me everything, because I don't know if they could remember everything, and the timelines were always like difficult to keep track of. And so I would just apply for everything because I'm like, I just want to get you whatever I can get, and we'll see how it all shakes out. So applying for SSI and Social Security disability, if they have a medical condition that prevents them from working, in order to get, and this is like a Social Security conversation, but to be successful in that application, especially if someone has been unhoused for a while or a very long time, you have to make sure that there are medical records to support the application. And so a lot of times when I was working with folks under the bridge, it was not just doing the Social Security application, but like, how can I get you into medical care that's going to be stable and with someone who I trust is going to do a good job with you? and is going to get good medical records that are going to help your Social Security case. Um, Based on the description given, that's where I would start, because he's not going to qualify for ABD cash until he gets the Social Security first.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we have answered all of our questions that we have in the Q&A chat. So it looks like that's us for today. And I just wanted to thank you again for spending time with us. We recognize that your time is valuable, and that taking time out to learn from us, we have gratitude for that. Our next training will be in the second Tuesday of the month, and that will be the consistent format going forward. We will release training titles and descriptions as quickly as we can, but we're being mindful of keeping them current with changing laws and rules, etc. I'll be sending out the PowerPoint today, and with a post training survey. If you do just have a quick second to fill that out and just be quite honest and let us know what you're feeling, whether it was useful, what you'd love to know. We're trying to be flexible and responsive to that feedback and really build this training out for you folks. So we would appreciate any feedback you have. Hopefully, fingers crossed, in the new year, we'll have this trainings posted on the Shipper website so that everyone can access from training 1 to training 12 all the way through once we're done. It is not the same training each month. We do offer different topics. Our first training was Public Benefits 101. Our second training was on maximizing Medicaid benefits. This training was on maximizing cash benefits people with disabilities, and we're moving forward with maximizing SNAP and a variety of other topics with which we'll keep you posted. I think that is everything. Thank you again to Shipper and the Office to Prevent and End Homelessness in Illinois for providing funding for this training series. We are grateful for your time. However you celebrate this holiday season, I hope it is restful and peaceful for you, and hopefully see you recharged in the new year to knock out these next 9 trainings. All right, everybody take care, and we will see you very soon.